Hey there, everyone. It is Coach Adessa again, speaking out to you all through one of my day-to-day commutes as you come to my mind. And I hope that the message of the day could speak to the right person in the right way at the right time to inspire, encourage them to take a moment to just sit in the driver's seat of their own lives, the way that I'm sitting in the driver's seat, my hands on the steering wheel and driving forward right now. You can just relax. Um, And like I said, hopefully just have the right energy, give yourself permission for that position of your life. With that said, um, I speak, every time I speak to you guys, it's never scripted. And so I'm going to do my best not to circle talk on this particular topic. And I might succeed, but I might not. So I'd rather give you a heads up just in case. This is one of those thoughts that hasn't been waiting for me to have long enough commute to record. But just speaking to me through the transitions of this day. This is sad season. So for anybody that can relate to seasonal affective disorder, let's let you know, you are not alone. This year seems to be harsh and brutal for most of us. And if you feel like it's been harder than ever before, give yourself permission to understand that is a part of your reality and that you're not the only one feeling even more blindsided or overwhelmed or shut down or like a undeserving, unlovable, failing, struggling, whatever comes to mind through those sad waves. We're all in this alongside of one another, which makes us in this together. If you ever need somebody to just healthy vent to or even have an FU chat, please feel free to message me or schedule for a video call. I can even make an offer for a group call discussion about it, just the FU chant together as one if we wanted to. Or if you just needed to hear that, whether you have a mood disorder or not, you just know that you get affected by the season changes and miss that vitamin D and consistency of day-to-day weather, whatever it is for you. A lot of us are going through that and feeling very similar and battling every day, one battle at a time. And so I've had these commutes while this week has been a bit more stressful than the others. And I realized that the driving itself is not my friend. I think I've shared with some of you before, and it might have even been on one of these recordings. I have always had travel anxiety. I first started driving when I was around 16 in a church parking lot when we lived in the church house. And then the first time that I ever drove live on a road in a legal, proper, safe way was coming home from work due to my mother's intoxication. That it was safest for me to be the driver. And I was very paranoid to be driving in dark, to be having those times where I'm hugging that side of the road to play it as safe as possible, and you can hear the grinders and you're coming off the road and all of those things that you go through. And then when it comes to adulthood, I was like so proud of myself. Like I mastered the driving skills, figured it out, overcame those hard times in my life. I worked my butt off to have enough money to pay for a driving instructor that was going to ensure that I had the resources and the awareness to get to a driving test. The whole 9 yards, everything that it took to get there. And I realized that I had 2 accidents in my life so far, hopefully no more. And both of them were out of my hands. It was not due to my lack of paying attention, how I keep my hands on the wheel, how I am very mindful to not be one that reads and texts and drives and does all of that. At that time in my life, I was smoking cigarettes, and I even would not light the cigarette without being at a red light or stop sign. I just never took it to that direction. And when I say both times were out of my hands, the very first one was a rear end situation where I am at a red light and I look in my rearview mirror and I can see clear as day that that vehicle was not paying attention. They were not slowing down even the slightest. and I braced myself for impact, and they slammed so hard, and the only thing I had in my authority was putting the emergency brake on to make sure that I still had the front of my vehicle, or at least try my best to not hit the car in front of me. And so I was able to succeed at that, for most of the damage be on their vehicle, and for my vehicle to be able to be repairable. The second accident I had was several years later, in a scenario where, actually it might have been years before, actually, let me correct myself, in a scenario where I was driving correctly. I come off of an exit to go into the lanes to cross over to the development I was living in, and there is a separate vehicle that jerks from the right lane to the left lane, where I was merging into the middle lane from a turn on a different side of the road. And so sure enough, that was a scenario that also involved another time of needing the police report, but that ownership being on the hands of the other party. And again, I would have mild damage to my vehicle in comparison to ones that unfortunately had much harder situations to go through, and some of them even resulted in fatality. So I have gratitude for the strength and the fortune that I was able to have in those two examples. But what it also provided to me was my live and learned experiences that are part of the challenges that I go through every time I'm behind the wheel. And what I mean by the travel anxiety, where I learned from those examples that, all three of those examples, the only thing that I have control over is myself. My decision making, the way that I hold the wheel, the way that I'm handling myself, and the way that I'm paying attention to not just what's right in front of me, but all around me to the best of my ability. In addition to those lessons, I had some unfair, unjustifiable situations involving. I don't want to join the debate parties, because debating is just not my thing. But let's frame it correctly. There was a time that I was accused of not stopping at a stop sign, when I advocated firmly that I did in fact stop at the stop sign, and that I would not have been smoking a cigarette at that time if I did not, and advocating for how I do not light it without being stopped. And I was able to voice where I had seen one of the 4 police officers that surrounded me at the 4-way stop. But that voice did not go anywhere, and I did not have the mental health energy to fight for myself. So I did not go to court. I accepted just paying the ticket and pushing forward. This was in my early on years, after being, entering adulthood in the most traumatic ways and all of that. And so then there was another scenario very similarly, and then one that had involved a speeding ticket due to a vehicle that chose to have a hostile scenario on the road, and through protecting myself, they then chose to speed up and prevent my ability from making it to an exit in time. The officer chose to pull me over out of the other party in that scenario. And I accepted that for what it was as well, as technically that scenario ended up causing me to also exceed a speed limit than I would usually drive in. And now I'm even more wise with my choices on the wheel and the amount of speed I would do. My point of adding that to the list of examples is that that's another component of my living and learning, because it got to a position where I had that opportunity to take a testing that not everyone is required to take, and I actually wish it was a legal standard for all. Like, I wish that it was more than just that driver's test you take for a permit, because this particular test to get points off, it requires you to have some different amounts of awareness than we were ever required to test on. It's not material that is in the study book for a learner's permit. I was shocked to be seeing things in that way for the first time. And it was really, really to assess if our mindfulness is strong enough to really deserve having some of those points off, because the points we earn is a part of natural consequences. For me, the points I had was a part of my choice to not advocate for myself. And I was able to have gratitude, like I said, for learning those, but that material in a different way. And my reason for that is because it has these uh, scenarios where they're really saying how all parties could be responsible for anything that can happen on the road, and or being able to increase your awareness of how much authority you can have just on your own decision making. And so my reason for referencing my own story with travel and my own story with my travel anxiety is that I really relate it to the same way that I speak about life sucks 75% of the time, and how reality is hard to live through without emotions and feelings and worries the same way we would experience with anxiety, summing it all up for us. Like, we're just going to call this anxiety. Like, living is anxious. And so whenever I'm driving and I'm saying that I have this symbolism of how I'm hoping that you guys can see, like, hey, I'm in my driver's seat, I got my hands on the wheel, I'm thinking of you all. I really hope that you guys can see that reality is not as bad as you've thought and how it's felt. I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, these commutes have been better than ever because I'm just talking to my people and I'm seeing how mindful I can be. Like the other day, I'm like, or yesterday, I should say, I was dealing with all the stress of trying to get to this booking I'm on my way to. And there was all this stuff on the road I didn't see coming, and the choices people were making with the driving, and it being a trigger button kind of day where I was already agitated and bothered by one thing after the next, but I was still being so mindful. I had like a healthy vent while speaking to somebody on the phone of what I felt was inconsiderate, but I was speaking in a direct way. It was like, okay, well, since you wanted to see my turn signal and you wanted to jaw over to this other lane, can you pick up the speed and actually go forward then, instead of sitting there and preventing me from making my own safe and mindful decision to get where I need to go? So it was like that type of venting where I am very bothered by the choice they're making. I can't make sense of it. I will never actually be able to answer any of the why did they do that questions for anything that irks my soul on this road, but I can see what bothers me, what I would not want to do myself, and I can choose to be the bigger person, and I can choose to stay the one within control of myself, and I can choose to try to keep myself and the vehicles in front and behind me as safe as possible, but I can't guarantee it for them, and I can't guarantee it for myself, but I can give my best effort, and I can try for due diligence and all of this stuff that goes with it, because I lived and learned through the uncomfortable experiences that taught me lessons no matter what, including lessons I never knew I needed to learn. And that's the same way that it works with life. Life has to give us those life experiences. My gratitude that I was adding to the list, it came from life experiences. Life needed me to go through those experiences. I would have had anxiety no matter what. There were accidents in my childhood that I could reflect back on that I would have no control over as the passenger. There's things you see on the news. There's the posts you see on the signs that people have set up in honor of people that were a part of fatality on the road. There's so many things that I would have always been nervous about, because I have never denied that this bipolar warrior has a lot of sensitivity to certain things, and she's forced to be a warrior and has to battle left and right, and that sometimes I'm a raging hot mess and other times I'm just so depressed and freaked to flip out. So it was guaranteed either way. But because of the life experiences that I was gifted, I was given lessons that I needed to still be able to do what I do today. Because if I didn't have those lessons, I'll be honest with you, I probably would have followed through with moving to Pittsburgh to not even need a car, or followed through with only working in the positions that I could take public transportation to not have to need a car, but instead I got myself to be in a position where I can show up for my people to the best of my ability, because I can go to their homes, I can go to where they live outside of my county, I can go to a different state even if I wanted to, but please don't ask me to fly because I've never been on an airplane yet, and that would be just as bad as the first time I got behind the steering wheels. So in reality, that is just one of the many examples of how we are all going through life's obstacles and challenges in our own unique ways, how life is teaching us in its own unique ways, how life can feel with us, see with us, hear with us, and they can say, I'm going to help you to the best of my ability. Life is saying, I'm going to teach you to the best of my ability. Life is saying, I'm going to show you and guide you and pull you to the best of my ability. That's why life will always suck 75% of the time. That's why those of us that are local like me are going to feel like it's more like 95% of the time. And those of us that have a purpose that we found and discovered and we're going to show up for, we can feel like it sucks 99% of the time, because then it becomes non-negotiable to accept our reality for what it is, to the best of our ability for what it is, and to not let our ability stop and be limited to where we are then. We want to be able to say the time is now for us to always grow and develop forward. We want to see our next steps. We want to strive and thrive in those more unique ways. We don't want to just be the best we've been. We want to become the best we can be. And so that means that we understand and appreciate that life is a strong and dedicated teacher. And that while we may not be able to control every single thing on every single road that we could cross, catch sight of, or actually be driving on, or walking on, because stand up, step forward, that's my thing. No matter what it is and what applies to us, the only thing we will ever have authority over is which keys we hold, which doors we open, which driver's seats we choose to sit in, which passenger seats we chose to sit in. Are we staying awake? Are we sleeping? Are we looking? Are we closing our eyes? Are we paying attention? Are we distracted? We have more self-control than we are ever asking for, but we do have it. It's all we have. And it is exhausting and part of why we burn out, and it is tiring and painful. And sometimes we do need that rest. We do need that struggle rest. We do need. We have needs. We need gas sometimes. Whatever it is that we need. We have authority and free will. And if we don't know and accept that because we are so distracted by everything we can't control and don't actually have authority over, that also was a choice we made. And those of you that I'm showing up for every single day, you don't completely agree with that yet. And you don't completely understand that yet. But I would put almost my whole life, because you still have to play it safe, right? But I would put almost my whole life, like we'll say 75 to 99% of my whole life, on betting that more than deep down, a huge part of you made it this far in this recording because you agree. It's like eye-opening, like, well, dang. I gotta focus on myself and what I have authority over. I gotta stop getting distracted wishing that I could control everything around me so that this could be less anxious, less frustrating, less triggering. I wish I could be less of a mess and more of my best. And I wish I didn't stop at just the best I've been, but could be inspired enough and energized enough to become more than I ever thought to be before. Like, that spoke to you. Some of the other stuff I said before might have spoke to you. Like I said, if you're hearing this at all right now, it spoke to you. So you don't have to believe it yet. You're not going to believe it until you experience enough of it to believe it. So even if it's not holding my hand and me being the guru, weird, unique coach that's supporting you, life is not going to give up. I just help translate life and help give examples like this to make even more sense for you. Life's going to keep trying. Life's more persistent than I've even discovered how to be yet. I hope that life keeps teaching me so I could be even more persistent for you. So you can resist, avoid, or hesitate as long as you need or want. Most of the time it's a want, though. Don't forget that. Or you can just say, you know what, I'm ready to explore a little more and see where it goes, at least. Whatever. But for now, I'm going to wrap this up, and I thank you all for this moment.
And again, I hope I just reach the right people at the right time. And feel free if I'm not, and you were like, I don't know why I got this far. Feedback doesn't bother me, no matter what tone it's in, because I would even learn from the negative feedbacks. Or I would be able to clarify anything that was just simply not able to hear me. And then I would also accept that perhaps I just wasn't speaking to you. But either or, like I said, feedback is good for me anytime. Comment, PMs, phone calls, whatever. Bye for now.